The bench, they were busy this morning. They were up in College Station. They did their show from the home of the Aggies. Jimbo Fisher was one of the guests to appear on the program. And this was Jimbo Fisher talking about his program, if it's where he wants it to be, as Jimbo goes into year 5 as the Aggies head coach.
Each team changes every year. Each team has a 1-year life expectancy. That's it. That group of guys is never going to play again. So anytime you infiltrate with other people, they have to buy in the culture. But, yes, our older guys, of how we practice, the way we practice, knowing what's going to happen, the tempos in which we do things, the physicality in which we do things, yes. But you're always having to build that in today's time because it's like in the NFL. They don't practice anymore. I mean, compared to what they do.
Right.
High school football, that's matriculating down into college football too, which is for safety issues, and we get that. But it's hard to go get tough if you're not in pads. I mean, football's a game that you say I'm tough. Okay, that's good till I get hit. That all sounds good, and I work hard, and I lift weights, and I run. That's not making you tough. And I think that's what you have to constantly teach.
Jimbo is such a football guy. That was my first thought on that. Second thought, he's been at A&M now going on his 5th season. I remember when he got hired. That's crazy. It's already been 5 seasons for him coming up here at Texas A&M. The third thing is this is a big year. They're ranked number 7 in the coaches poll that we're going to get to here. Last year, coming off that COVID year where a lot of people felt like they were snubbed, they should have been a playoff team. Last year, they didn't get it done. They obviously had the incredible win over Alabama, but overall, it was a disappointing season for the Aggies. This is a monster year for Texas A&M football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, the Aggies hired Jimbo Fisher with the expectation of making multiple playoffs and winning at least one national championship. Well, he's about halfway through his ridiculous contract that he signed when he took the job. Now he's already gotten an extension, so he's got some extra support from the Aggie faithful, but they expect results, and he raised the bar over the last year, right? Beating Alabama proves that you could beat Alabama, the biggest dog in college football. You could beat that team. The expectation is, why don't you beat them often? We know you're capable of doing it. Now when we lose to them, it's going to be disappointing. And then he followed that up with luring the number 1 recruiting class of all time to College Station. And that raises the bar even more because you know you can recruit with the big dogs. Hell, better than the big dogs in the sport. So when you do stuff like that, Cody, once again, the expectations were already high. When Jimbo Fisher was hired, they made a fake national championship trophy saying Jimbo Fisher, Aggies, national champions 2-0 ? They were already high when he got there, but they've elevated even more with what he's been able to do over the last 365 days.
They've had some really disappointing and some really bad losses under Jimbo Fisher's tenure. And I think about last year, look, you lose to Arkansas, we find out what Arkansas is by the end of the year. Like, that's a team that, it could slug with just about anybody on any given day and give somebody some trouble. But Mississippi State at home in the middle of a stretch of, this is before they've even played a road game. Okay, they got all this stuff. I know they have a true road game. I mean, they lose to Mississippi State. That loss at the end of the year to LSU was really bad. Like, there's just different things that has happened in Jimbo's tenure. Like, there's been some things where, he's raised the bar and there's high expectations. It's just the results have not been there. And look, I understand that they lose the guy they think is going to be their starting quarterback the first week, second week of the season, and they got to go to the backup, and he's not nearly as good. But to your point, BK, he kind of teases you. He gives you that. Okay, look, we can hang with the big dogs. We could beat Alabama here at the any given Saturday type thing. And then tough for Jimbo because the expectations jump even higher when he has a great recruiting class, and it's not like all those kids walk on the field and help him right away. Like, there may be a player here or there at a position here or there that can help the Aggies right away, but it's going to be on the backs of these past 2-3 recruiting classes that he's put together. And did you find the right guys? Did you keep them in the building? And are they ready to go when it gets to game day? I just don't know how they live up to the expectations that they have for themselves right now.
You can't you can't beat Bama, and lose 4 games in a season. Like, that just can't happen. And the only successful year that Jimbo Fisher has had in College Station was the COVID year. And a lot of people will kind of hold that against him because that was the weirdest year of college football we've ever had. Now, me as a Texas fan, Texas grad, I give A&M all the credit in the world. That team was damn good in 2020. But in the other 3 seasons that Jimbo's been in Aggieland, they've lost at least 4 games. Those aren't the expectations for A&M. And to go to your point, Cody, there's a scary number out there for the 2022 Texas A&M Aggies, right? Like, this number 1 recruiting class is awesome, historically good, but it might take them some time to actually get on the field, right? To expect true freshmen in today's college football to to come in and make an immediate impact, that's tough. That doesn't always happen. We're big Phil Steele guys, you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And every year he puts together this experience chart, and it takes into account a number of different factors. It looks at the number of seniors on a team's two deep. It tracks the returning stats from the previous season, rush yards, receiving yards, passing yards, tackles, takeaways, starts, whatever. All of those things are taken into consideration. There are 131 teams in Division I FBS college football. A&M ranks 124th in returning experience. They don't have a ton of production coming back. Now, they got some guys in the portal. Once again, the recruiting class is really, really good, but a lot of the guys who were a part of last year's team that beat Alabama are no longer a part of things. Like, there are not a lot of seniors, and Jimbo was talking about that with the bench this morning. There are not a lot of seniors on this Texas A&M team. So we're talking about expectations being high. It might be a little bit tougher for Jimbo this year, considering how much the Aggies lost from last year's team.
It's a big assessment of what Jimbo Fisher and his staff can bring to the table, too. Switched out his defensive coordinator because defensive coordinator left for a head coaching job. So he's got that. He's got a lot of talent there. There's something called the blue chip ratio for how many players on this roster are highly recruited guys. Aggie's got the fifth best number in the nation. So there's talent there. Now it's an assessment of Jimbo and his coaches. Can you pull that talent out of those kids, and can you get those kids on the field having success on Saturdays? Because the talent is supposed to be there now based over these last 4 recruiting classes. So let's see what you can do now that you have some of that talent over there in Aggie land.
So Texas A&M comes in at number 7 in the preseason coaches poll. Number 1 was Alabama. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Number 4, Clemson. Number 5, Notre Dame. Number 6, right in front of the Aggies, was Michigan. You look at this top 10 here. If you want the rest of the top 10, I'll give it to you real quick. Utah at 8, Oklahoma at 9, Baylor at 10. Are these polls accurate here? Is anyone overrated? Anyone underrated? Just looking at the top 10?
Man, I don't know that I love Oregon being as high as they are. They're in 12. I know you said top 10, but
Oregon's 12.
I feel okay about the top 10. I don't know. It's going to be very tough for the Aggies to finish better than 7th.
Why is Georgia lower than Ohio State coming off a national championship? They lost a lot of guys?
They lost a million guys.
But they just,
they
they're
just
like
put
Alabama.
like half the first round in defense
But it's like Alabama. They just reproduce.
Yeah,
They got the backup behind the guy that just went to the draft. Now going to be a first-round pick.
All right, well, let me ask you this question. Would you rather have Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, or the mailman?
The mailman.
No, you don't want the mailman. You want the other two guys.
How many national championships do the other two guys have?
Well, that's
0.
Well,
The mailman's got a ring.
okay, they'd have scored 1 million points if they were the quarterback for
God.
Georgia.
They had Bryce Young.
Stetson Bennett is a damn good quarterback. Put some respect on that mailman's name.
I never said he sucked. I just said he ain't C.J. Stroud and he ain't Bryce Young. Like, that's why those two teams are ahead. Belief in the quarterback.
I've got 2 top 10 teams that I think are overrated, and I think, Cody, you'll agree with me on one of them, and that's Oklahoma at number 9. Boy, the Cale Gundy story that's coming out of Oklahoma.
Getting nasty.
Not good. Like, things are, I don't want to say spiraling out of control. That feels too strong, but a lot of bad storylines coming out of Norman before Brent Venables has even coached a game. You want to talk about losing a lot. Oklahoma obviously lost a lot because Lincoln Riley just poached their entire program and took them all to USC. I think Oklahoma's overrated. I think Clemson's overrated.
Ooh.
Clemson's not that good this year, guys.
They were bad last year.
I'll eat my
For their
words if I'm
standards.
wrong. They were bad by their standards last year. I don't think DJ Uiagalelei is that good. I don't even think he's the best quarterback on their
What
team.
happened to that guy last year? He lights up Notre Dame a couple years ago when Trevor Lawrence had COVID, right? And last year he was supposed to be like the favorite to win the Heisman. It just never happened.
Yeah, 5-star coming out of high school, too. It just didn't materialize. I don't think he's going to be the starter for the entire year at Clemson, so there's one thing for you. Their offensive line is just not good. It's really not. Like, people don't often focus on that when they're putting together polls or when they're talking about teams getting ready for a season. Clemson was bad in the trenches last year. I don't have a lot of reason to believe they're going to be a whole hell of a lot better. So, top 10 team, sure. But do I think they're going to make the playoff this year, which is where the coaches think they are? No, they're not that good.
The Draftniks believe that Clemson may have a defensive line that rivals that legendary defensive line from a few years ago, and they really do not have some sort of awful world beater schedule that they've got to run through. Like a team like Texas A&M, they've got like 4 or 5 different like trap games on their schedule where it's like, oh, like you could definitely lose to this team. I don't see that on Clemson. The back half's a little loaded here or there, but man, I think Clemson could be rolling, feeling themselves. And Ungalale could have some time to kind of get his feet underneath him. And if that defensive line talent's as legit as the draftniks believe, they're going to just maul people on a week-in, week-out basis from the defensive side. But, yeah, are they the fourth best team in the nation? BK, you might be right about that. I'm a little higher on them than you are, but they're probably not the fourth best. There's a clear gap between the top three and everybody else, though. I think we all know that.
Someone texted in, Utah opens up with Florida, so they won't be in the top 10 after that.
Are we sure about that?
Unless they beat Florida.
Yeah, they'll be in the top 5 after that.
Are you sure about that?
Come on now.
It doesn't feel like everything's all hunky-dory in the swamp these days.
I guess a Gator fan is listening to the Wheelhouse right now. Let us know your thoughts on the coaches poll that came out yesterday. A&M 7, Baylor's 10, Texas is 18, Houston is 25, if you're curious about some of the local teams that we care about here in Houston.